Hi, I'm Michele Viana, neurologist and clinical researcher, and I'd like to talk to you about migraine aura. About 30% of migraine patients experience aura. But what is migraine aura? Recurrent attacks lasting minutes, sometimes hours, of fully reversible visual, sensory, language, or other central nervous system symptoms that usually develop gradually, which are usually associated to headache and associated migraine symptoms. If aura symptoms include, among others, motor weakness, we will define it hemiplegic migraine. If aura disturbances include brainstem symptoms such as diplopia or ataxia but not motor weakness, aura will be defined as brainstem aura. If aura includes only visual or sensory or dysphasic symptoms, we will define migraine with typical aura, the most common type. And in this video, I'll talk about this one. Here you have the diagnostic criteria of migraine with typical aura. Please note that criterion C for being fulfilled requires the presence of at least 3 characteristics out of 6. In this context, remember that each of these 6 sub-criteria is not universally valid, and we will see some examples later on. On the other hand, these criteria together are highly sensible and specific to diagnose migraine aura. Frequency of aura symptoms. In this diagram, I reported the frequency of occurrence of all the combination of the 3 symptoms. Such data came from a recent prospective diary-aided study. Overall visual symptoms are present in 98% of auras, sensory in 32%, and dysphasic in 11% of auras. Please note that in 61% of cases, there are just visual symptoms. In 36% of cases, visual symptoms plus sensory and/or dysphasics. In about 2% of cases, auras include just sensory and/or dysphasic but not visual. So pay attention to auras without visual symptoms. Features of aura symptoms. In addition to being the most common aura symptoms, visual aura symptoms are also the most multifaceted. Visual phenomena can be subdivided into so-called elementary visual symptoms. These are 25, as we have reported in a recent systematic review. I show you them with the help of some images I created with colleagues of NTNU Trondheim, Norway. Patients can report bright light, foggy blurred vision, zigzag lines, scotoma, scotomata, several scotomas, and small bright dots. White dots round forms, colored dots round forms, lines, geometrical images, like looking through heaps of waste, water, or oil, and visual snow. Being-like forms, hemianopsia, deformed images, tunnel vision, oscillopsia, mosaic vision. Fractured object, corona effect, an extra edge around objects, total blindness, micropsia, macropsia, like a negative film, and complex hallucinations. Most auras include more than one visual symptoms. For instance, in this image, we have zigzag lines and bright light. Here you have a representation of different areas of the visual field involved during aura and their frequency of occurrence. We can have periphery, in or around the center, one half, and all visual field. This diagram represents the direction of spreading of visual disturbances across visual field at the origin and at the end of aura during different attacks in the same patient. You can note that there is a high variability even in the same subject. With respect to the laterality of visual symptoms, although one criteria of classification states that at least one aura symptom is unilateral, a correct clinical study reports that 40 to 50% of patients have a bilateral disturbance in at least a part of the attack. Colors. About 40% of patients report colored visual disturbances in at least a part of the attack. With respect to sensory symptoms, they are mostly represented by positive phenomena such as pins and needles sensation with or without negative ones, and only in 10% of cases there are uniquely negative phenomena. Face and hand are the most involved areas, and about lateralization, symptoms are mostly unilateral, although 15% of patients have bilateral presentation. These findings are quite consistent over different studies. Language disturbances. These are mainly represented by impaired language production, and less frequently comprehensive aphasia can occur. I'd like to highlight that dysphagia is not the only one higher cortical dysfunction that can occur during aura. There are many more, though less frequent, and all of them have been collected in this recent systematic review of literature. Temporal aspects. With regard to the sequence of symptoms in auras with multiple disturbances, please note that visual, sensory, and dysphasic is the most common suggestion, but is not the rule. There can be other sequences. There can exist 4 different scenarios of time relationship between an aura symptoms that we can call B in relationship to another one that we can call A. Here you can see the frequency of occurrence of each case. When they start together, when B starts during A, when B starts simultaneously with the end of A, and when B starts after a free interval of time after the end of A. The gradual development is one of the most important features of aura. In visual aura, the disturbance gradually moves in the visual field, and in sensory aura, the symptoms moves at a slow march from one part of the body to another. Duration. In classification, subcriteria C3 reports that each individual symptoms last between 5 to 60 minutes, and this is reported also in the description. Prospective data recorded on diaries on more than 200 auras show that median time of each symptom is 30 minutes, but 15% of aura symptom lasting for more than 1 hour, with only 5% overcoming the 4 hours. Aura and headache. Migraine aura is usually associated to headache, but there are also auras without headache. And there are patients reporting only auras with headache, a small part reporting only auras without headache, and the remaining ones with both types. With respect to time relationship between the onset and the end of aura and headache generally starts after the onset of aura, but there are also about 20% of cases in which headache starts before or simultaneously with aura. Do patients have stereotypes auras? On frequent consecutive attacks, just considering visual phenomena and the combination of aura symptoms, only half of patients had the stereotypes attacks, with others reporting different features from one attack to another one. Please note that many features that can contribute to the variability of phenotype were not included in this analysis, so it is likely that intravariability of aura features is higher than 50%. I'd like to conclude this video highlighting that migraine aura is a common condition with polyhedric manifestation, and it's very important to know its 100 phases. I hope this video has given you an overview of them, and thank you very much for your attention.